It seems like Hollywood wants to ruin Avatar: The Last Airbender. Despite the cartoon being one of the best shows of Nickelodeon's golden era, every time someone tries to redo it in one form or another, it ends up being a complete disaster. First, we got the absolutely awful movie adaptation, which was the only movie I've ever walked out on before the end. And I was a kid at the time. I would have stayed to watch paint dry. To put in perspective how bad it is, literally the movie was so bad that most fans of the Avatar series pretend that it doesn't exist. But a while back, we got some news that Netflix was going to make a live action version of the show, and people were skeptical but interested, especially because the original creators were going to be involved with the show. Because of that, people started getting their hopes up that this might be the live action version of Avatar that fans have wanted all these years, only to find out a few months ago that the original creators abandoned the show because they couldn't control the creative direction of the series. The creators leaving was a massive canary in the coal mine for the fans, but some held out hope. After all, the recent live action adaptation of One Piece had been really good, so maybe we would get lucky with Avatar too. But recent comments from the actors and the producer have made pretty much everyone lose all hope that they had that the adaptation would be good in any way. It seems like once again, we're gonna see a team that doesn't respect or understand the source material make a mockery of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Why do I say that? Well, it honestly seems like they just had no idea what the original character arcs for the characters in the cartoon were supposed to be. Based on their comments, which we will get to in a second, it seems like they've taken what was a cartoon that explained and explored some very serious themes and put them in a safe, friendly package that appealed to both children and adults, and turned it into a Game of Thrones ripoff. And I mean the last season where there was zero character development and stuff just happened that was entirely out of character for everyone. The one that I saw first was a tweet from Variety about how the new version was going to tone down the sexism. The tweet reads, "Netflix's live action Avatar: The Last Airbender series is toning down the sexism. We took out the element of how sexist Sokka was. I feel like there were a lot of moments in the original show that were iffy," says MattyO, Katara. "Yeah, totally," adds Ian Owsley, Sokka. "There were things that were redirected just because it might play a little differently in live action. Read more," and a link to the full article. I honestly don't know that I need to say too much about how messed up that entire conversation is, because any fan of the cartoon will know how this ruins Sokka's entire character arc. Firstly, it was a children's show. Sokka wasn't really written as this massive evil sexist. The sexism he exhibits in the cartoon is childish, brash, but mainly like not really anything anyone would get offended by. And that shouldn't shock you considering that the show was written, produced, and aired on a children's television network. I think that it probably says something very interesting about the people over at Netflix when they seem to have been offended by stuff that neither children or parents found offensive a decade ago. On top of that, Sokka's character arc, his development, is really one that you'd think people who are offended by children's cartoon sexism would love. It's a generally positive message where he learns the error of his ways. It boils down to Sokka's cultural viewpoint, coming from a civilization that has been ravaged by war and the loss of his mother, being that men are supposed to protect women, that women shouldn't be warriors, that it's a man's job to be the warrior. He goes along with Katara and Aang in part because he wants to protect his sister, and that's a man's job, which, like I said earlier, isn't an offensive position to take. It's the cultural reasoning of all Judeo-Christian civilizations, a reasoning that has only recently become more moot since Samuel Colt invented the Great Equalizer. But Sokka doesn't even keep this viewpoint throughout the entire show. He gets shown by both his sister and the Kyoshi warriors that women can be just as capable as men when it comes to protecting themselves. One episode literally has Sokka dress up in a female Kyoshi warrior attire because he wants to learn from them how to fight better. Removing the sexism from his character arc not only turns him into a one-dimensional character with no growth, but also removes the positive message that women can fight on equal ground with men. It just seems like a bad decision. And if you're wondering if maybe the tweet takes the actor's words out of context, I checked into the actual article on Variety.com and it confirms what the tweet says, even going on to note that Sokka's character was so sexist that there were entire Reddit threads about how offensive it was for him to say things like, "Girls are better at fixing pants than guys, and guys are better at hunting and fighting." And that would be bad enough. Just completely removing an important side character's motivations and growth are easily enough to ruin a show in my eyes. But it seems like they didn't just want to ruin Sokka's character, but according to an interview that the producer and showrunner gave to IGN, they changed Aang's character around too, in a way that ruins him as well, in in my humble opinion. This tweet from Discussing Film started popping up not long after the one from Variety, and it also went viral due to mass outrage and disappointment. To make Avatar: The Last Airbender a serialized drama, Aang will not go on many detours, looking for adventures like riding the elephant koi. We essentially give him this vision of what's going to happen, and he says, I have to get to the Northern Water Tribe to stop this from happening. Yeah, that's bad. Like, completely misunderstanding Aang as a character bad. I gotta see if this is real, and yeah, according to IGN, Albert Kim, the showrunner for the upcoming show, said, pretty much, yeah, I think the state of the world and the stakes of the world are still the same. So he decided to make Aang's narrative drive a little clearer. In the first season of the animated series, he's kind of going from place to place looking for adventures. He even says, first, we've got to go and ride the elephant koi. It's a little looser as befits a cartoon. We needed to make sure that he had that drive from the start. And so that's a change that we made. We essentially give him this vision of what's going to happen. And he says, I have to get to the Northern Water Tribe to stop this from happening. That gives him much more narrative compulsion going forward, as opposed to, let's make a detour and go ride the elephant koi, that type of thing. So that's something. Again, that's part of the process of going from a Nickelodeon cartoon to a Netflix serialized drama. So it does look like we are going the way of the live action movie on this one. That one answer tells me that there is no way that these people understand at all the character of Aang, at least in my opinion. Throughout the cartoon, Aang constantly goofed off, did stuff like riding the elephant koi that wasn't entirely relevant to his main quest to take down the Fire Nation. But those detours, that wasted time, wasn't actually wasted. It was to show that Aang wanted to be a kid. His original narrative drive was that he was chosen to save the world from the Fire Nation, not that he chose to do it. He literally ran away from the Air Temple because he didn't want to have to face his responsibilities. It was a major act of character growth that he went from being a kid who had to save the world and didn't want to being a character who wanted to save the world because he finally realized the depth of his responsibilities because of his travel, because of his goofing off. His entire early character arc was to realize that the world was worth saving, that he had to accept that responsibility, whether he was ready to or not, for the sake of his friends, the people he met along the way of his journey, a good number of which he wouldn't have known if he didn't goof off every once in a while. Taking him and making him serious and immediately ready to beeline to the Fire Nation to take down the Fire Lord is just a complete destruction of his character. And honestly, the show's overall theming. To the audience, the show was meant to convey the struggles that kids feel with dealing with real responsibilities for the first times in their lives, and how they can succeed even if at first they don't believe that they can. Removing Aang's childishness, even tamping it down, removes that entire theme from the show. It completely changes not just the character, but the narrative of the entire show. It's awful. I had hoped, after the failure of live action shows like Cowboy Bebop, Halo, The Rings of Power, that studios would have learned that all fans want is for them to respect the source material. I mean, the One Piece live action show was a massive hit success because even though they changed some things around, they respected the creator's vision. The changes they made didn't affect the characters themselves, but actually brought the characters' original intentions into a way that worked well in live action. Moreover, I'd think, given the massive controversy around Disney's upcoming Snow White movie, that maybe some people in Hollywood might have realized that having the actors in a new adaptation come out and talk about how the original work was so bad because it isn't in line with the new age Californian cultural norms leads to a PR disaster. But from these statements and interviews, I can only assume that the new show is going to be really, really bad. Maybe not quite as bad as the movie, which would be hard to do, but nowhere near as good as the original series. I guess we are destined to have The Legend of Korra as the only half-decent Avatar media to come after the original show. And I say that begrudgingly and am unhappy about it. I don't know why all of these people who make shows and TV are so quick to make changes to stuff like this. We saw it in the Halo show. We see it in a lot of the adaptations, where the new people involved in making the live action show seem to look down on the original, seem to have disdain for what was beloved by many, whether it's video games, cartoons, or who knows what else. The people in Hollywood these days seem to always think that they know better than the original creators. And well, the track record proves otherwise. I guess it's still possible that somehow the staff working on the show will salvage it. Hard to see how that will be possible after they are happily talking about how they lobotomized two of the main characters, but it's possible that they could. I hope they do. Avatar is a great show with a lot of great messages. I think it'd be good to be able to bring that to a new generation, but at the same time, it may end up just being better to show them the cartoon instead. What do you guys think? Do you have any hope that this show will be good? What made you lose hope? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. Have a great day, and God bless you.